that they cannot build an industrial system without us. They cannot build a production system without us. No matter what they say, the Americans simply cannot do what India can do because their cost structure is much, much, much more expensive than ours. We can build things that the Americans would never imagine. India can do that. So that would be the first part of a president's address. We would talk to the youngsters in India and say to them, we want you to be partners in this revolution. We want to change the Indian banking system so you can have access to it. And we believe in you, we trust in you, and we believe you can take on the Chinese. That's the first part. The second part would be about participation. We have done a caste census in Telangana. And what we have found is shocking. Almost 90% of Telangana is either Dalit, Adivasi, backward, or minority. Almost 90%. And I am convinced that that is the story across the country. I am absolutely convinced that the OBC population of this country is not one less than 50%, possibly 55%. 16% are Dalits, 9% are Adivasis, 15% are minorities. Last budget, there was a photograph. You remember the photograph?
Of course.
वो मक्खन बांटने वाली, हलवा बांटने वाली फोटो. मैं हैरान हो गया कि इस बार फोटो ही हटा दी. हलवा खिलाया मगर दिखाया नहीं किसको खिला रहे.
Please.
So at the center of any new development paradigm for this country, which runs parallel with the production paradigm I spoke of, which works together with the production paradigm I spoke of, is the participation of lower castes, OBCs, Dalits, Adivasis in the wealth of this country. If we look at the largest corporates in this country, they are all owned. None of them are owned by OBCs. None of them are owned by Dalits. None of them are owned by tribals. If we look at the biggest media companies that support the Prime Minister, every day we see the Prime Minister's pleasant face, smiling face on these media. None of them are owned by OBCs. None of them are owned by Dalits. None of them are owned by Adivasis. This is the fact. So central to any new development paradigm is the architecture of a new paradigm. And that architecture of the new paradigm can only be built once the caste census is placed on this table. Because once the caste census is placed on the table, we will know exactly how much of this country's wealth, how much of this country's power, how many of this country's institutions are owned by 90% of this country. There are OBC MPs in the BJP. There are OBC MPs in the BJP. There are Dalit MPs in the BJP. There are Adivasi MPs in the BJP. Remember, you are OBCs, you have 50% of the population and you have absolutely no power. I know that you're sitting there and you cannot even open your mouth. That is the truth of the country.
प्रधानमंत्री का चेहरा आपको दिखाई नहीं देता है.
जाति जनगणना,
प्रधानमंत्री का चेहरा आपको दिखाई नहीं देता है.
आर्किटेक्चर,
अंधे हो गए.
participation, revolution in this country that we are going to bring.
ये अंधेरा हो गया है.
पार्लियामेंट में है.
ये कुछ दिखता नहीं है.
सोनिया गांधी, प्रियंका,
ये इधर ऑपोजिशन को कुछ दिखाई नहीं देता है. ओबीसी बात करते हैं.
So the idea is, Speaker sir, the idea. Speaker sir, So the idea is, on one side, allow India and the Indian youngsters to participate in the coming mobility revolution. Allow them to participate in building robots, in building drones, in building electronic items, in building EVs. And on the other side, running parallel.
मैंने उनको ही मना
The country,
किया,
Speaker sir.
ऐसा नहीं है,
So-
आप भी बहुत डिस्टर्बेंस करते हैं.
Okay, Speaker sir, so parallel ideas. One idea, participate in the mobility revolution. Whether you're thinking of economy, weapons, production, healthcare, India should participate in this revolution. India should become the master of the electric motor, master of the battery, master of optics, and master of AI applied on top of that production system. Now imagine the power of AI when we apply it to the caste census. You imagine what we will do with AI and what we will do with the social revolution in this country when we start to apply AI on the data that we get from the caste census. So we are going to run a parallel track. On one side, participation, revolutionizing the participation of Dalits, OBCs, Adivasis in the ruling of this country, in the institutions of this country, in distribution of wealth of this country. And on the other side, parallel track, challenge the Chinese and participate in the revolution and defeat the Chinese in electric motors, batteries, solar panels and wind. So that is the first two parts of any presidential election address that any India Gathbandhan